Okay, hey everyone. Welcome back to the Field Between. I'm Ahmed.
And I'm Yasmin.
I think off the bat, we're not really prepared to do an episode on it, but we're recording this kind of as the most recent wave of violence is kind of unfolding in Gaza. And I think I'd be kind of remiss if I didn't at least acknowledge it. Like I said, we're not prepared to do like a full episode because neither of us is an expert, and if we do talk about it, we want to make sure that we are being thoughtful and prepared. So I think just kind of sticking to some basic facts. It's very heartbreaking to see any form of violence and kind of the snuffing out of life. I feel absolutely heartbroken right now just seeing all the footage of bombing and buildings exploding and crushing people, and fathers weeping over their children. Never a good thing to see. And yeah, it is
just any loss of life is a tragedy, and any loss, especially of civilian life, is definitely a tragedy.
Absolutely. And I think furthermore to add, the reality is, now there are 2.5 million people in Gaza who are stuck there, unable to leave, and will suffer heavily, air raids, phosphorus gas bombings, and just, unable to leave while the city kind of falls down around them. I think nation states, expansion of nation states and the building of nation states and heavily militarized states, unfortunately, has a very large human cost, and it's hard to see. I think the discourse from what I've seen so far, and this always happens, is that people will try to tell you this is a Jewish-Muslim issue. And I just, if anyone's listening who's kind of maybe hearing all that stuff for the first time or doesn't know it all that well, hasn't really been confronted with it, just don't fall into that trap. This is not a Muslim-Jewish issue.
I'd like to add to that, absolutely. Some of my best education on this issue has come from Jewish activists in the U.S.
Absolutely.
who are explicitly anti-Zionist. And so wherever you fall on the issue, I think it's also important not to speak for everyone and to acknowledge that you are speaking for a group of people.
Yeah. If you're down with it, we should come up with maybe a list of... Because a lot of what I've learned has come from Jewish academics, writers on the issue who I've really followed and done a lot of good work. So
one thing
we can,
if you want something a little more lighthearted, one of our favorite documentaries is called The Mayor. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a good introduction because the premise is very simple. There's a mayor of a town or a city in Palestine, and he's a Christian mayor. Many Palestinians are Christian, and he's trying to put on...
Ramallah in the West Bank.
Ramallah, right, in the West Bank. So not where this current conflict is happening. But in Palestine, and he's trying to put on like a Christmas show, and it just kind of shows like the everyday struggles of trying to run a city under occupation, like the logistical issues. And so I'd really recommend that. I had like learned a bit about the conflict, but I still felt like that just gave a really good everyday perspective that I appreciated a lot and learned from a lot.
So I'll just end by saying like our hearts are just out with the people who are suffering right now, and
and also just speaking for myself that we don't condone any kind of violence against civilians on either side, and I'm very sorry. Very rough videos to watch of civilians, including people on all sides.
Okay, so it's going to be kind of hard to move on.
I was going to say, what's your plan for the transition? But
I don't know.
We
there
had to
isn't
say
one,
something
but
because it's been. I mean, now it's like there's a lot of suffering in the world. the earthquake in Afghanistan is also really awful, and I think is getting kind of buried in the news because of this. But
look at your waves. Look at mine.
When I'm sad, it's hard to have loud waves.
Yeah.
And then Ahmed has to go digitally alter my voice, which is a lot of work for him. Well, I have a good transition to an item.
Okay.
But okay, this is my thing. France is a little silly. I love France. I love visiting there. But as a colonial power, as, you know, a country that treats its minority population, particularly Muslims of African descent, very badly, I have no problem making fun of the French. I'm a huge fan.
Right.
But as someone who personally has gotten bed bugs 4 times, I feel a lot of...
Yeah, that's a lot of times to get bed bugs.
I feel a lot of disinformation is being spread. Because people keep on joking and being like, oh, now the French have to cover up. Like, you know.
Yeah, I saw that too. It's just, people have been tweeting, making fun of the irony. It's like, oh, the French have banned the hijab and like had Muslim dress for so long.
Right, and now they're so dirty, they're infested.
And now they have to cover up.
But I have to give a PSA. If you have bed bugs, don't wear clothes. Don't wear your clothes. Yeah, they live in the fabric, y'all. You have to kill them. You have to. Okay, I have so many pieces of advice. If you have bed bugs, DM me. But the first thing that you do is you put them into the dryer on high heat and you wash your clothes repeatedly. Yeah. Do not put your clothes on, especially if they're long sleeves. You're just going to get bitten everywhere.
It seems like the last thing you want to do is wrap yourself in more fabric. Yeah,
they live in the fabric. I don't understand. I have like bed bug PTSD. When I get a mosquito bite, you've seen this. I'm like, is this a bed bug?
Yeah. No, that makes sense because it seems like a very traumatizing thing. I think if I had bed bugs once, I'd freak out.
Yeah. They're gross. I've gotten them mostly while traveling, thankfully. Oh, actually only while traveling. So the good thing is that at least like you only have so many belongings and you can throw most of them out. Mm-hmm. To get them in your home, it happened to my parents. I think they're okay with me saying that publicly now because it's been years. But to get them in your home is like, it's just ridiculously a pain in the ass. You have to be so vigilant to get rid of them. Yeah.
It seems kind of tough. And I recall seeing something along the lines is like this new, like they're developing a resistance to some sort of...
Oh no,
I could be wrong on that. I could be. So
but they just follow migration and travel patterns, so they're going to be everywhere soon because it was just Fashion Week. I mean, they'll be in New York again, I'm sure, soon. And
my thing is, so the other thing that people have been saying is that a lot of the exterminators obviously have been super busy because of the rise of bed bugs in France. And I'm just like, if I were an exterminator, it would be in my interest to just carry on little vials of bed bugs and go to hotels and then
oh my
gosh,
let them
loose.
You would just like, that's awful.
So how's that? Yeah, how's that? You know,
this is like some deep-seated conspiracy shit. You're like, what's probably happening?
No. I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm saying, why isn't it happening more?
I honestly don't even think exterminators are that helpful for bed bugs. I think what you have to,
it's like a free market. Like if we had a totally free market, that's what I would expect someone to do. That's how their incentive structures align.
You can take care of them yourself. You just have to be really vigilant.
Exterminators can't strip you down and bathe you, and
you have to just like repeatedly wash all of your clothing and dry it like several times, and you have to like get rid of anything in the house that you think might be the problem. You have to get rid of couches, like anything with fabric. So I mean, I guess it's a lot of work.
You're telling me we'd have to get rid of this couch?
We hate this couch.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm happy
maybe we'll have to get some bed bugs.
Oh no, are you gonna plant some bed bugs?
I might.
I could never forgive that. We hate this couch. We spend a lot of time thinking about how much we hate it.
Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, but I was just like, I'm like, listen, if you want to dunk on France,
yeah, that's fine.
There are just so many ways to do it.
Don't spread health misinformation.
But like, don't post something that if you think about it for like 2 seconds, you're like, hold on, this doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever. Why would they tell people to wear more fabric? Like, that's not happening.
No, everybody strip.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people our age are starting to get Facebook brain, you know, like.
Yeah. To be fair, I think we just have different conspiracy theories, but I think that we're not much better. I mean, maybe I'd like to think we're a little more media literate because we grew up with social media, but I'm not sure if we are.
The tactics and the mechanisms of disinformation are getting a lot more sophisticated.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What else? Do you have anything else?
No, that was my item, but I was really felt important to me
That's
to share it. Yeah.
That's all you got. What else happened in the news is so our last episode was end of September. So
Gosh,
we're
has it been
mid
that long?
October. Yeah.
Oh, no.
I know. Yeah, we fucked up. But so Dianne Feinstein passed away. And I would feel remiss if I didn't share with you my favorite Dianne Feinstein moment.
Okay.
Hold on, I gotta find it.
I'm worried.
Okay, so a couple years ago, I think like some children who were with the Sunrise Movement went to Dianne Feinstein's office to...
The Sunrise Movement is like a climate change activism movement, for those who aren't familiar.
To plead with her. You know, they said that, hey, we're the ones who are going to be living with the consequences of climate policy. Please support a Green New Deal.
Please. Okay, I'll tell you what. We have our own Green New Deal.
Some scientists have said that we have 12 years to turn this around.
Well, it's not going to get turned around in 10 years. What we can do,
Senator, if this doesn't get turned around in 10 years, you're looking at the faces of the people who are going to be living with these consequences.
The government is supposed to be for the people and by the people and all
you know
for the
what's
people.
interesting about this group is I've been doing this for 30 years. I know what I'm doing. You come in here and you say it has to be my way or the highway. I don't respond to that. I've gotten elected.
Dianne Feinstein just says, I don't negotiate with terrorists.
Two children.
Ran. I was elected by almost 1 million vote plurality. And I know what I'm doing. So, you know, maybe people should listen a little bit.
I hear what you're saying, but we're the people who voted you. You're supposed to listen to us. That's your
How old are you,
job.
Representative? How old
I'm
are you?
16. I
Well,
can't
you didn't vote for me.
Well, I'm 24.
It doesn't matter. We're the ones who's going to be impacted.
Yeah, that's
It
rough.
doesn't matter. We're going to be the ones who are impacted.
I understand that. I have 7 grandchildren. I understand it very well.
I just love that there's like a kid with a speech impediment. It sounds real. We're the ones who are going to be impacted.
Yeah.
You know? And she's like, yep.
That's rough. Well, rest in peace. We wish her and her family well.
But yeah, so that was one of my favorite moments.
That
What
is
else do
pretty
I
rough.
have?
I know we've got a main
Let's see.
topic we're interested in talking about.
We do have a main topic. I've got a few more because I guess I have to pad out the episode since someone only has one item.
But mine was so good.
Okay, this is just a funny clip that I liked.
Okay.
And there is Ray Davis, 51 yards on that drive alone, running and receiving. He's a guy transferring over from Vanderbilt. 9 months ago when he jumped in the portal, everybody wanted him. 11 years ago as a foster kid, really nobody wanted him.
Wait, what? That's so mean.
Like absolutely unnecessary sports commentary.
That's so mean. Wait, did he
the-
literally just say when he was a foster kid, no one wanted him?
He's like, you know, a couple months ago when he put in himself in that transfer portal, everyone wanted him. When he was a foster kid, no one wanted his ass.
Oh my gosh, you know what that reminds me of? Sorry, y'all. This is truly a rambling, but hopefully fun episode. But have you seen all the news with The Blind Side? Or what was that movie called?
Yeah, The Blind Side, about how the family essentially just like took advantage of him, and yeah.
Which makes so much sense to me. And I want to say I feel I'm not often like ahead of things, but I felt massively vindicated because I remember a friend in high school had me watch that movie, and I was like, this movie feels so weird to me and
Really?
so awkward and uncomfortable. And the whole time I was super uncomfortable, and she
Yeah.
was like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, this just feels like a weird movie about like, I don't know, like I just like the main character was such a flat person who just existed for this like white couple that adopted him. Like it was such a
Yeah.
one-dimensional character. It was so uncomfortable and awkward. So I'm not surprised at all that he did not sign off on that depiction of his life.
Yeah.
Not
And
only did he not sign off of it, I think he didn't even get much of the money
I
from
don't
the
think
movie.
so. Yeah, they have like
somehow-
a conservatorship or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sketchy.
Fucked up. Okay. This is another one of my favorite clips that I saw over the last couple of weeks that I've been waiting to show you. It might loop
We try not to talk about things that we're going to talk about in the podcast. So it's a kind of a cute thing. We're also like, there'll be something he'll mention, but we can't talk about it until we get here.
Yeah. Apparently they're on some sort of reality show, but this is David Beckham and Victoria Beckham.
Okay.
On their reality show.
I didn't know they had a reality show.
I am being honest. Working class.
Being honest.
I am being honest. I am being honest.
What car did your dad drive you to school in?
So my dad did.
No, one answer.
My dad.
What
Well,
car was it?
alright, it's not a simple answer
What
because
car did you get your dad to drive?
it depends.
No.
Okay, in the 80s, my dad had a Rolls Royce.
So
I don't know. Trying to say she grew up working class.
Yeah. I think the beginning got cut off a little bit, but she was talking about how she grew up very working class.
Aww.
And then he hears that and he comes in. He's like, "Hold on a second. What kind of car did your dad drive?" And then she's like trying to backpedal or like explain. He's like, "No, just say it."
No.
And she's like, "Yeah, my dad drove a Rolls Royce." I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
That he just like called her out. I don't know what reality show they're on, but yeah. Okay, what else? I have something a little niche here that I have been on for a while.
Okay.
That I think is something that is underreported and people haven't really talked about much.
Let's hear it.
There's a sicko in our midst.
Okay.
And it's the Duolingo owl.
Oh, yeah. So Duolingo is actually headquartered here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. And so I might go down there and get a bunch of get a mom's group together and say, keep this thing away from our children.
Uh-huh.
Because a while ago, if you ever go on the Duolingo TikTok and scroll down a bit, you'll see that the owl has a lot of videos just kind of macking on Dua Lipa, who is, I don't think she's Muslim now, but I think her family's Muslim.
Yeah.
Dua.
Prayer.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, it had like a series of like thirst videos for Dua Lipa. One of them.
So weird that like the actual corporation signed off on that.
Well, I don't know. The marketing department. Apparently, the marketing department is run by, or not the whole department, but like the social media was run by a young Desi girl.
Nice.
Maybe Muslim. I don't know. But anyway, so the Duolingo owl has a piss fetish for Dua Lipa, and it's
and this
been
is like company canon,
and it's company canon. It's canon that the Duolingo owl is a freaking piss pervert. I'm going to play this for you, and then I'll kind of, because it's a little bit more visual, you have to be able to see the captions, so I'll explain them after. But
okay.
It kind of starts off, it's like a caption of like, "Oh, ew, who peed in the pool?" All right. So, yeah, the first caption is like the owl at the pool, and it says, "Oh, you who peed in the pool?" And then it's a picture of Dua Lipa saying, "Oh, sorry, it was me." And then the last shot is of the owl swimming underwater in the pool.
And this is from like their official account?
This is the official Duolingo account. You can see the little...
I love the anarchy. That's so strange.
Yeah. So I just wanted it to be known that it is canon in the Duolingo owl universe. That
Duolingo is the only
fetish.
Corporation that we stand. Good for them.
Really?
Yeah.
That's your stance?
Yeah. I think it's hilarious.
I think it's perverse.
No? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's right.
You don't think it's right?
No.
When you're a kid, everybody pees in the pool occasionally.
Ew. I didn't. I got out. I thought that was disgusting.
Okay, I didn't pee in the pool, but I never peed in the ocean.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're close to people in the ocean, you know?
Yeah. So that's all my items.
Nice. Good roundup, baby.
I think. Hold on.
I think that's good.
Let me double check the list.
Keep going.
We were going to talk about the Ibram Kendi thing, which is a little bit stale in the news now. I think people have kind of moved past it. What are your thoughts?
It's interesting. I want to talk about it. So Ibram Kendi has kind of made his career off of being an anti-racist activist. Can you look up the title of his book? Where's my phone? I've read his book. I like it a lot, actually.
I think it's How to Be an Anti-Racist.
But what was the first one that was like a history of American racism that kind of put him on the map? It came out around the time of the BLM protests. Yeah, sorry, I'm just looking this up really fast. Thanks. Yeah, so I think it was Stand from the Beginning that I'm thinking about.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. That came out 2016.
Yeah. So, first off, I think decent writer, good intentions, but he kind of became like a spokesperson and like a person that you had to read if you wanted to talk about anti-racism.
Mm-hmm.
And then it almost became kind of like an employable niche, which I have mixed feelings about, because like I think people want to hear from experts,
mm-hmm.
and they want like lists of things, and I don't think that impulse is bad.
Mm-hmm.
But then he ended up getting this institute at Boston University. And again, I want to be really careful, because as an academic who one day hopes to like, or wouldn't, shy away from like running an academic institution or some kind of center, I really enjoy that kind of programming work, and I understand why people have a heart for it.
Yeah.
But this institution just got flooded with money, like an obscene amount of money.
Yeah.
And universities really say that they want to do community work, but are not always the best at actually doing that.
Yeah, I think we were looking at it. They got like $125 million anonymous donation.
Just like obscene amounts. Yeah.
Nuts. And then, in total, I think they said they raised like around 50 million.
Yeah. And they've come under attack because there's just like a lot of questions about how the money's been spent and like what's actually been done. And It seems that the answer is honestly not that much,
they don't
given
have
how
much
much money that they got. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't want to sound overly critical, because I think that it is complicated, and it's not like he chose to get all of his funding, but I think that there's something about thinking about how do we actually aid grassroots organizations that are doing work in communities. And when we tell ourselves that we do academic work that bridges into communities, like what does it actually look like, in practice?
Yeah, I mean, you could say, I think a lot of people have critiques of him as an academic, which I don't know, because I'm not an academic and I haven't read his books. I don't know his comprehensive definition of what it means to be anti-racist. I've only heard the critiques of it. But to have a center that has raised $50 million at like a prestigious institution, and to not have anything to show for it and how it's spent, is a little bit alarming. I feel like they weren't even able to point to saying like, oh, we funded certain chapters of BLM, or we funneled the money into like young organizer, activist, artist, whatever, and in the form of grants. Like, and that's the
thing about like kind of passing the mic and like sharing resources, is that there's only so much. A university center can do incredible work. They can do really great work reaching out to K through 12 educators. They can do great work with their own population. They can get lecturers in. But at some point, maybe he should have just been like, okay, this is enough funding. We don't need more. And like, if you come to me, I can redirect you to other places that need the money. Because there's just only so much you can do through a university institution. And I just don't really know what they thought they could do with all of that, those millions of dollars that couldn't have been done with like more local community organizers.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest critiques is like, oh, this makes anyone else who is trying to really do the work and be visible, makes people skeptical now.
But it shouldn't, because everyday activists are not getting hundreds of millions of dollars. Like,
yeah, and the other critique is that this came at the expense of funding other activists who are doing
That's the one that I kind of feel
which
more.
I don't buy, because if you're looking at, again, $125 million donation from someone anonymous, I for sure would bet my fucking hat on it that this person is not funding grassroots activists who are actually a challenge to their local systems, any sort of threat to power, because that's exactly what these people do, is that they find someone, and I'm sorry if this is kind of harsh, but they find a patsy who they can like throw money behind, who they feel is not really threatening to them, and then they essentially get a tax write-off for this shit. At the end of the day, I don't even know if they really care or not. Like, I haven't seen any news about pulling funding, right? Like, they still no one's been like, oh, I'm rescinding my commitment to fund the center, right?
I mean, this is that kind of danger also of the system that we have. It reminds me a little bit of our episode on Hassan Minhaj of like what happens when one person becomes emblematic of a movement.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't know. I don't know if that's fully avoidable, but I think just to be aware of that, like if you ever become that person. I mean, and again, I still want to say, like, I respect a lot of the work that he's done. And I feel like, I mean, I'm sure that there's ways that he could have been more thoughtful about this, but I also do think it's kind of like a systematic issue.
Yeah.
And I don't fully know what the answer is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
I also know that there are critiques of his academic work, but I don't think we have to get into them here. And I don't feel that like I don't feel invested enough in those debates or have like a strong position myself. And I don't know if it's my place to.
Fair. I was about to ask you if you had seen the video of Cornel West kind of talking about.
But that was, I mean, wasn't that more just because someone tried comparing him to Du Bois?
Kind of, but I think he also in the clip, maybe I'll drop it or something, or if you want me to play it, I can try to find it.
Yeah.
But my memory of it is that he also just had the critique, which I agree with, is that I think someone had been asking if he was like an anti-racist first or whatever, and he was like, no, I'm not. I'm like a son and a brother and whatever. Like I'm a lover first. Like I start from the position of loving other people, and then I move from there, rather than defining my first principle or like what I am as an anti-racist, because I prefer to put out like a positive vision of what can be, rather than like defining myself as being against this structural thing.
I love Cornel West, but I don't. I mean,
hold on. Let me.
I don't know that Ibram Kendi saying that he's an anti-racist means that he's not also other things. You know,
that's fair.
I was gonna say, I think that the main critiques I've heard of Ibram Kendi's academic work are one, particularly more with the other book, which I haven't read, How to Be an Anti-Racist, that it makes it seem as if anti-racism is something that can happen on an individual level, and others argue that like really it's a systematic issue. Not that you can't aspire obviously on an individual level to change, but that like we should be more going for systems. And then the critique of the other book, which I did read, Stamped from the Beginning, I think was something along the lines of, again, kind of making it seem as though, I guess, not providing as much larger context for the creation of racial categories as could be helpful, like a longer historical view. But I thought, to be fair, that it was just a history of like racism in the US, and that's what the book was trying to do, and it was very accessible, and I think that that's why it sold so well. And I think it's important to have texts like that are easy to access, and like, I mean, it's not like a book that like changed my world, but I also appreciated it for what it was trying to do.
Yeah, you're generally more lenient on that stuff if it's accessible, which I get, but I guess I do believe there's something to the critique of it from the left, which like a lot of people might read as unfair. It's like, okay, well maybe it's not for you, but
what do you mean?
Like I think combined your critiques are kind of like how I feel, where it is written for a broad audience in a way that maybe doesn't do like the issue of race in the US justice, because it is such a structural thing, and to make people believe that they should repent kind of on an individual level misses the point. And that the fact that, you know, racism like and stuff can change in the workplace, or, you know, like race relations can change through changing the workplace in the US.
Is that something he's particularly focused on?
I mean, I think through like the kind of speaker and consulting circuit, and it seems like not him specifically, but just kind of like the same
industry of kind of like DEI stuff.
Which I feel like is kind of,
I feel bad lumping him with that, honestly. He's still
really?
Like, I don't know.
Because his books have kind of spun off like How to Be an Anti-Racist Baby, which is the one that like Ted Cruz held up and was, you know, and like, it's just kind of the ungenerous soul in me calls it a money grab, you know. It's like, what?
But I mean, I like know people who have read these books looking to learn, and it was a good gateway for them to learn more about the history of the US, and so someone has to write books that are meant for that.
I'm just thinking, could you imagine being on like the New York City subway and just seeing someone reading how to be an anti-racist
baby.
like what would your no not how to be an anti-racist baby, but just how to be an anti-racist, like what, because I feel like a lot of guys like go down in the subway with a book and they're just like, I'm gonna look real pensive.
I wouldn't think anything of it.
Really?
Yeah.
You wouldn't be like, this guy's racist, trying to be anti-racist?
No.
That would be my first thought, is like, damn dude, I mean, kudos to you for trying, but you're racist right now. If you're having to read a book about how to be anti-racist.
I mean, we all have biases. I don't think anyone's free from societal bias.
Yeah.
And I think that we all also have positions of privilege and comfort that when it comes down to it, it is hard to give up.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, I don't want to belittle people who are trying to self-educate, because I think on some level we're all doing that. Like, even if we're reading texts that might seem more whatever, a lot of it I mean, even my desire to read like some primary source texts, like
but what if it is
Marx, like, come from a desire to like, understand systems. Yeah. But yeah, I hear you. There's something that feels a little like the anti-racist baby thing. I felt was a bit cringe, but I was like, it's not my place. But yeah, babies aren't racist. I guess the idea is they can grow to be racist.
I guess so. I mean, I guess my hesitation here is just that if the accessible version leads people down more of like a neoliberal sort of path to viewing race and trying to solve race within the constraints of a kind of capitalist system, or not really challenging a capitalist system or a nation state system, it's kind of leading you down the wrong path.
I don't know. I think a lot of people on the left are also really shit about race and like don't take it seriously as a category. Like, I'm reading a really great book right now, which I'm not going to remember the title because that's always me. And I'm reading it very slowly because I'm not being great about reading right now, but it's a history of Marxist and leftist movements in the US, and like every fucking movement it's like, and they failed to really deal with the issue of race, like, so yeah, I don't know. I don't think the left gets to claim like being particularly good on that issue or particularly radical.
But just because Marx, I mean, I don't know.
No, not like, just Marx. I mean, the history of labor movements in the US has been pretty awful.
At times, yeah. I mean, I think you can look back to moments where it was more progressive, and then a lot of other times where it was less, and you can talk about like the broader context of what was going on, and like labor movements have been pitted against each other by a capitalist class to like, demonize immigrants and things like that, because they thought it would break up that like cohesive working class coalition. But I think, as bad as, or as much as we can critique like the left, whatever that means, on its history of race, which I think there are some really, really, really valid critiques there. Liberals and the right have been much, much worse. And what was I going to say? There have been a lot of really great like leftist thinkers who have expanded the work of like people like Marx and stuff, like Fanon, right?
Course,
like just bringing it into the more like, oh, here's a look at capitalism and colonialism through a racial lens.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't know that someone who is failing to adequately critique the neoliberal system is necessarily adding to it just because their focus is race. I think ideally there would be like an analysis that combined both categories, but yeah.
What do you think about, okay, because this is how I feel. I'm just like, if anyone has a lot of money behind them and a powerful institution behind them, I just like automatically view that person with skepticism.
I mean, Cornel West is at Harvard.
No, he's not. He got kicked out of Harvard. They refused to give him tenure.
Yeah, but he's back. Did he get kicked out again?
Is he back? I thought he was still at Union.
He was there while I was there.
Yeah, and then recently they refused to give him tenure, and now he's at Union Theological Seminary.
Still a prominent institution.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, he's...
But like, I mean...
Someone like Norman Finklestein, who I think really challenges the system, has been totally blacklisted from academia.
Yeah.
And he's like a great writer, has not had nearly the success or prominence that someone like Kendi has.
I just don't think it's that like clear cut, personally.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. I just always look at it with, yeah, like a lot of, I'm just like, if someone has a center with 50, like,
Yeah,
are they,
I mean, I would also say this is like not
it's like
quite
if the
same
Ford
thing,
Foundation,
but like,
you know,
yeah,
did anti-racist work.
but it's also like, I don't know, there are like leftist podcasters that make millions of dollars and do very little to support real world movements, like don't donate their money, just like, and
Right.
also kind of churn out very hot takey content. So like, it's, you know, you could point to anyone who makes money and has power relatively and say, you're
I
not
think
doing
there's a
enough.
difference between someone who makes a lot of money from like, you know, a bunch of $5 a month subscriptions.
But but that adds up. Yeah.
No, certainly it adds up. And
Yeah.
I'm just going to call it out. Like, I know you're like kind of like adding, or like, you know, the subtext here is like someone like Chapo.
Yeah.
Right. Which
I like some of their programming, but some of it I just find so boring and
say
like
what you will,
self-reflective and navel gazing.
I do know in the past they have done like huge fundraisers for like Palestine and other causes, and they've raised hundreds of thousands, if not, you know, like, yeah.
And I'm
like,
sure
raised
some
a lot
of these
money.
institutes do some good programming. I don't know. It's not an apples
I doubt
and
they are
apples
giving
thing,
it to the
but-
same institutions that like these smaller, more nimble, you know, by comparison, a podcast is much smaller than a huge institute backed by millionaires at Boston University.
I don't know. I do find it annoying when like podcasts like Chapo are so navel gazy and like so like, I don't know, like hot takey, but then like don't acknowledge how much insane amount of money that they make. I prefer like, I like there's other like leftist podcasts that I enjoy, but for some reason that one kind of gets on my nerves.
What's
It's a
the
bit
other
of
one?
a digression, but
What's the other one that you enjoy?
I love like Bad Faith. Like I enjoy that.
Uh-huh.
But Chapo kind of rubs me the wrong way for some reason.
Because it's a bunch of guys.
Probably. Yeah, they're kind of annoying.
Interesting.
I like their history episodes. Those were cool.
Mm-hmm.
I like some of their stuff, but
I will say, yeah, we don't even have that wide of a relationship, but you know, get well soon, Matt. Hopefully he's doing better now. But
I don't even know who Matt is. I don't listen.
he's
to
the guy
Chapo
who does
very
the history
often.
episodes that you like.
I
He's
like those.
in
Those
the
are great.
hospital.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Hope
Yeah.
he feels better. Anyway, I think, I know it's a complicated issue. And I think that it's a good reminder that if you ever become the spokesperson for a thing, to kind of like pause maybe and just be like, okay, who else is here? Like, I think it's always better to do coalition work, which I'm sure he was probably trying to do to an extent. But, and also like if you're doing something like a center for anti-racism, like you have to have really clear ideas of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And where the money's going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, it seems like it should have been maybe earmarked to give to organizations.
That's
I
the
think you're
tricky
right.
thing.
I
A
think
university
like,
can't do that. So then just don't. You should have a cap on how much you can take. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely like victims of their own success there.
Right. And maybe be honest about like, hey, there's, you know, we will do helpful programming and stuff, but like this is the actual impact that we expect to have, as opposed to like, you're not going to radically transform society completely with a university sanctioned institute. I promise you that. But there are many professors who take really important radical stances and do great work. But I think a lot of that work has to also happen outside of the university.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll agree with that. I don't recall. I have to take a look. But since that story came out, I haven't seen anything from him or from anyone kind of saying. The only thing I've seen is like, hey, we have $17 million in our endowment. And then people are like, yeah, that's the problem. Is like, what happened to the rest of the
right,
money?
What are you doing with it? Yeah, exactly.
They're like,
wait, that's so funny. The updates have just been like how much money they've raised.
Yeah. So I feel like there's not kind of anyone out there kind of taking accountability for what is going on, or
yeah, it seems like
even
a fair
admitting
assessment.
that there is a problem.
Totally.
And aside from the money part of it, I think there were some other critiques of how the center was being run. Like it was kind of, people were saying was like really all about him. He kind of felt like he had to like micromanage every little thing. So the idea, you know, I don't think anyone can say that, oh, maybe he just didn't know. It's like very clearly he knew. And it seems like a lot of people either joined and then left the center because they just felt like the management was like really bad. And maybe he's like this guy just kind of got in a little over his head. I can't tell you that I would know how to manage $50 million if I suddenly like was in charge of a center, but I also don't think I would let people give me $50 million for anything.
Yeah. And again, a good reminder, like not only to not become emblematic, but that like movements are movements. Like they're multiple people. Like you should never have guy. Even just a center with one person, honestly, is not healthy or great institutionally.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, really,
I think there's like a messiah complex with like white liberals where they find someone and they're like, this is going to be the guy who breaks us from the yoke of racism. and it's just like, that's not how it works. Yeah. Like you need to recognize movements and not people.
Yeah. And find like thought leaders who you respect and admire, but it's probably not going to be just one person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you do with $50 million?
Oh God, I don't even know. That's like a hard number to comprehend. I would do some selfish things first. I'd pay off our loans. I'd buy a house.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So for sure, there would be an article in the news that's like, wow.
Oh, you meant like for a center. I thought you meant like if we personally got $15 million.
No, if you had like a center.
Oh, okay. If I had a center. I mean, I honestly would try and reallocate some of the money. Like, I don't think I need $15 million to run a center. Now I'm never going to get hired to run a center, though, because I said that.
Yeah, the point of the center is to bring money into the university.
No, and of course I would want to do that. And, like, I have a lot of ideas for programming that would involve community engagement and, like, arts and stuff like that. But I don't know if it would cost $15 million. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. I think it would cost a little bit less. $1 million, you know? Yeah, I'd settle for $1 million.
Okay.
I would give scholarships.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, are you looking for more ideas?
Yeah.
So,
how much time have we done? Let's see. We've done 51 minutes. Yeah, no more ideas. All right, bye.
Bye.